So lastly, we've now assigned our materials to this product, but if we really want to take some nice pictures, we want to do something called rendering. And is there a good way of doing this? This means that you add shadows nicely to your material. So the first thing I'm going to show you is how to render. If you come up to Environments, click on Environments, and then click on this kettle called Inventor Studio, okay, and then the kettle again, which we're going to go to Render Image. Now you will get kind of aspect ratio here. I'm just going to turn that down. You might like to keep it there, but I'm going to turn it down just to speed things up for us. And then you can click on render. So you can see a slight shadow here, but if you render that, it will give a more realistic view of your materials. Can you see how they're starting to look a little bit more realistic? And it will add in the shadows where they should be. And you can see it's rendering it along here. Now once that taskbar gets all the way up to here, you can click save, and that will export a PNG file, which is like a JPEG file. I'm not going to wait there because I'm going to show you some other tips that you might do. You may like to change this bottom button to photo booth. That's a bit more like as if we're in a proper studio, and if you render that, I'm just going to turn up my aspect ratio a little bit higher, so you'll see that we get a bigger image. You can see now it's got a bit more kind of like what we might use a flash, and it's creating some bigger shadows in there. Now that's giving me a really nice image of my bug house, or the beginnings of my bug house. And again, once the taskbar gets to here, you can click on this button and save it somewhere, and then you can save that file into a Word document and print it off. Now another option that you might do, so that's really nice, you might decide to change the view of it. You might decide you want to show this kind of view, or you might show a front view, or you know, rotate it around to here and show this kind of, sorry, I was trying to click on this area here, this kind of view. But what is really nice and what's kind of special is if you right click on here and then go down to perspective, that gives a kind of perspective view which looks kind of cool like this, but really comes into its own when you start looking at it from the front. And then if you render that, you get some really kind of interesting kind of dynamics going on. You can start to see some of that happening as it kind of picks up and shows you. Another thing, which is for those who are real experts, is you might like to change the background to white. Go to File, Options, Colors, Presentation, Background Image, one color, and then once you've done that, it will be in white. And this time when you now go to rendering your image, you will have a white background, and that starts to look really, really cool. I'm going to stop that there because you don't need to see it. I would suggest if you do turn your background to white, that you immediately, once you've finished, turn it back. So File, Options, Colors, back to Winter Night, change it back to background image, and apply and close. And the reason I would do that is because it's much easier to work on a product when it's in when it's got a kind of some shady background. Right click on this to turn it back to orthographic and save your work. I hope you've enjoyed these Inventor videos. Make sure you finish Inventor Studio before you create